Okay, so I'm going to be talking a bit about the Virtuous book design that I did for this class, and let me just say it was a big experience for me. I've never made a book before, so this was definitely a challenge that I was optimistic about doing. That being said, I had a lot of fun with it. So the two people that I chose to do for this project were Paola Antonelli and Bruno Munari. I really liked the way that she talked about design as art. I was really inspired by posters by Armin Hoffman. He took this idea of shape and form and negative space and really made it abstract and up to interpretation for the viewer. I also liked a lot of the Bauhaus-inspired art for Peter Murphy, a lead singer of a band called Bauhaus, actually, and I really liked this use of positive and negative space. It almost felt like the type and the imagery were kind of suspended in this entire composition. There wasn't necessarily anything super grounding about the piece, so it felt like everything in the composition was really floating, which I think made it really interesting to look at and kind of went against some of the more solid and rigid forms that the Bauhaus was known for. I also looked at this one book cover that inspired some of my design for my cover page. This kind of jumbling of the type really helped me break through this mental block that I was having. I'm normally a designer that's a little more rigid and kind of within the lines at times, and I think that's just me being scared to try new things at times. So jumbling up this text like this and kind of trying to make it look funky without losing its legibility was a lot of fun. And I think that allowed me to kind of jump into this project a little more confidently once I was able to come up with this design idea. I looked at Bruno Munari and Paola Antonelli, both tied together this idea of design as art and treating it more as a way to appreciate and understand the work that designers do and what we are responsible for in the world. One of the most important things that I took away from listening to Paola Antonelli's TED Talk was this idea that designers are the biggest synthesizers in the world, and that what they do best is make a synthesis of human needs, current conditions and economy and in materials, and then what they do at the end, if they're really good at this kind of thing, is much more than the sum of its parts. And we kind of have this responsibility to bring a lot of artistic knowledge and understanding of the world in which we function, and making that into a cohesive and tangible way for other people to interpret our world. For the background of my book, I actually found this image of Bruno Munari with a piece of tape over his mouth and these different horizontal lines crossed over his face. And this kind of made me laugh at first with the humor of his message kind of within his writings being a bit outdated and kind of misogynistic, if you will, especially for the time period that I guess this was just commonplace. But I really thought it was interesting, just kind of this whole composition. So I took the photo and I made line work out of it and came up with this kind of cool pattern that I thought was really nifty. It almost felt kind of like a map, and a topographic map, you know, of elevation. And so I decided to use that as the background for my book, kind of complementing the paper that I use, which has these little specks and dots in it. So it kind of, to me, that kind of meant like imperfection, but that's kind of what I was going for with this book, so it really honestly felt like it fit. Making the book was a lot of fun, actually, especially once I started to cut up the pieces of board and start to glue things down. Also making the screen printing was pretty nifty, especially having to wash off the parts of the screen that didn't get dried under the UV light, and then painting everything and making sure that everything fit properly. So I guess what I'm trying to say at the end of this whole project is sometimes art is uncomfortable. You know, we want to lean towards these spaces that are safe and easy or comfortable, and honestly, this project was uncomfortable as heck for me. I'd never knew how to make a book before this. I'd never been this abstract with some of my work before, and this project really just encouraged me to be a little more open-minded and okay with not being okay all the time, if that makes any sense. So with this in mind, I would just really encourage you to, as Paola said, just be the synthesizer of the world around you. You know, how can your art and your sense of self take on challenges in our world around us? And how can you encapsulate your style while also giving a message to people? Thank you.